Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a cable stitch sweater. This cable is all about comfort with a slightly oversized, slightly cropped design, full of texture from patches of alpine, and added classic vibes from not one, but two types of cables. Speaking of, if you're a fan of cables, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of crochet tutorials and patterns with many more cables coming weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado, for this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I use a total of 550 grams of yarn. That's 1200 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you are right or left-handed. I'm dominant with my right hand, but can slowly, very slowly, crochet and write with my left hand. Details for the giveaway down below. You're using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting the sweater started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 6mm hook, and we're all going to get started with a really long chain. So we're all going to get started with our alpine stitch detail portion first, and that's going to be a total of 9 chains for everyone. So let's all start by making our chain 9. Now that we have our 9 chains, we are going to insert our stitch marker into that last chain. And right after that chain 9, we're going to make a chain 8 because that's going to count as our twist portion. And now that we have that chain 8, we're going to insert our stitch marker into that last chain as well. Now from here, we're going to continue to chain 9, insert a stitch marker, then chain 8 and insert another stitch marker, until we have a chain that reaches from mid-bicep all the way over to the base of our neck. And I will meet y'all back when we have a total of even number of sections into our chain. Alright, so I am back and my shoulder portion is complete. I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 stitch markers into place, and just to make sure that our sections are sectioned off correctly, we should have our alpine, twist, alpine, twist. Everyone's last section should be a twist portion. And now from here, we're going to work on the middle of our piece, which is going to start with another chain 9 and insert our stitch marker into that next chain. But since this is going to be the middle, I'm going to be using a different colored stitch marker. So I'm going to chain my 9 first. Now that I have this chain 9, I'm going to insert a different colored stitch marker into there because this is going to mark off where our cable stitch detail is going to be. So when that next stitch marker is into place, we're all going to make a chain 8. And now that we have our chain 8, insert your same colored stitch marker into this chain. And now that we have our middle stitch marker stitches into place, we're now going to make the same amount of chains that we have on this side, making sure that we're still inserting our stitch markers into every 9th and 8th chain. So to do the following section together, we're going to start by chaining another 9 and insert your stitch marker into that chain. From here, a chain 8, and then insert your stitch marker into there as well. And just continue to repeat our chain 9 insert a stitch marker, and chain 8, insert another stitch marker until we have the same amount of chains that we have on the other side of our middle stitch marker stitches. And then I will meet you guys back. Alrighty, so I am back with the entirety of my chain. Now this isn't the shape that it's going to be worked into. This is just the easiest way to show you guys the sections that we have because this is a very long chain. But just to make sure that everything is looking correctly, from the beginning of my chain over to where my first middle stitch marker is, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. Now we should have the same on the other side. So counting from this middle stitch marker down to where my hook is, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we do have the 8 chains in the middle for our cable stitch detail, but we aren't counting that as any of the sides. Just to let you guys know my numbers, I have a total of 94 chains. And the total length that I have is 25 inches or 63 centimeters. But once we have the entirety of our chain completed, we're going to do our first row, which is a half double crochet row. So we are going to be blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. So we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook. So bring your hook down and into that chain. We're going to yarn over and pull through. Should have 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3. Again, yarn over into that next chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and just continue with 1 half double crochet into every single chain that we have. And we do want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch markers into the top of the stitches because we still need to know where every section is going to start and end. Alright, so our half double crochet row is complete. Now we're going to do our row 2, which is just a single crochet row, but we do need to make sure that we're inserting our stitch markers into the same stitches as well. So from where we're at, chain 1 and flip your work. Into that first stitch, insert your hook, pull through 2, and continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch, and we should all have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. Alrighty, so we are back. Our row 2 is complete. So now let's get started on our first cable stitch row, or our row 3. So chain 1 and flip your work. Now getting started on our alpine stitch detail, and this will be the same for every size. We're going to start with a single crochet into that first stitch. So insert your hook into that first stitch, pull through, and pull through 2. Then we're all going to do a front post double crochet, but for every cable stitch row, we're going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 1. So to do our front post double crochet, we're all going to start by finding that second half double crochet from our row 1. So we're not going to count that chain 2, and that first half double crochet doesn't count because that single crochet is directly over that half double. So into that following stitch, we're going to yarn over and bring our hook underneath the body of that stitch through the other side. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we are now going to pull up tall to get the same height as our single crochet. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that is going to be our 2 stitch sequence for our alpine stitch detail. So let's do our following set of stitches, which is going to start with a single crochet. We're always going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the next insert with a single crochet, and then yarn over, preparing for a front post double crochet. We're going to skip that following stitch from our row 1 because that single crochet counts as that stitch, and then underneath the following we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that's it. So let's do this again. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and insert into the following with a single crochet, then a front post double, so yarn over. Skip 1 stitch from our row 1, underneath that following stitch, yarn over, pull through tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. And we're all going to continue this until our stitch marker is reached, or until we all have a total of 9 stitches. So our first alpine stitch section is finished up. I have worked my way all the way until I'm worked into my stitch right before my stitch marker stitch. I have a total of 9 stitches, and now we're going to get started on our twists. So what we're all going to do from here is take out our following stitch marker, but don't put it too far because we're going to need to reinsert it. And we're going to prepare for a front post treble crochet. And that's going to start with a yarn over, of 2. Then from here, we're going to find our following half double crochet from our row 1 to work into. So taking a look at our row 1, we are going to skip that following stitch because our last single crochet for our alpine stitch detail counts as that stitch. And then underneath the following, we're going to insert our hook through the other side, yarn over, and pull through. Now we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and reinsert your stitch marker into the top of this stitch so we know where all of our sections start and end. Now to do our twist portion, we're going to yarn over twice again, preparing for another front post treble crochet. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch from row 1, and then into that following, insert with 1 front post treble crochet. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to do another front post treble into that following stitch as well. So yarn over twice. Into that next stitch, insert your hook underneath and through the other side, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then we're going to put 1 front post treble crochet into that 1 stitch that we skipped. So yarn over twice, into that stitch that we skipped, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, pull through. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and now our first twist is complete. Once this first twist is finished, we're going to automatically get started on another one. So yarn over twice, skipping 1 stitch from our previous row, and then inserting into the next with a front post treble crochet, then a front post treble crochet into the following stitch as well, then a front post treble crochet into the stitch that we skipped, so exactly the same as the first twist. Then to finish off our twists, we're always going to do 1 front post treble crochet just to frame it all out. And now we're going to get started on our alpine stitch detail again. So making sure that we're skipping 8 stitches from our previous row because we just did a total of 8 stitches here. We're going to single crochet into that following stitch. So just to count this out together, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then into the following stitch, insert with a single crochet. And don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch so we know where every section starts and ends. Then to do our alpine stitch detail, we're going to yarn over, preparing for a front post double crochet. Looking into our row 1, we are going to skip that following stitch because that single crochet counts as that stitch. Into the next, insert with a front post double. So insert through the other side, pull through. Pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then a single crochet. So making sure we're skipping 1 stitch from our previous row, into the next with a single crochet. And we're going to continue on with this until we have a total of 9 stitches for our alpine stitch detail, or until our stitch marker is reached. We are back and we should all have a total of 3 sections all finished up. Now we're going to do our twist detail one more time. So getting started on our twist detail, we're always going to do our framing stitches, which is always going to be a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice, and then skipping 1 stitch from our row 1 because that single crochet counts as that stitch, we're going to insert our hook underneath that following stitch, through the other side, pull through, and yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. And don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch. Then to get started on our twist, yarn over twice, skip 1 stitch from our row 1, into our following stitch, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Then another front post treble crochet into the following stitch, so underneath through the other side. Then 1 front post treble crochet into that skip stitch, so yarn over twice. Bring your hook back into that skip stitch through the other side, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Then from here, we're going to do a second twist and close it off with a front post treble crochet to frame it all out. Then all we're going to do is continue to alternate between alpine stitch and twist detail until we reach our middle stitch marker stitch, and then I will meet you back so we can do our middle cable stitch detail together. And just as a really quick tip, the last section that we should have that's right next to our middle cable stitch detail is going to be an alpine stitch section. We are back and we have made our way all the way over to our middle stitch marker. Now what we're going to do from here is our middle cable stitch detail, and that's going to start with a front post treble crochet. So we're all going to yarn over twice. We're going to skip that following stitch from our previous odd number row because that single crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the next, insert with one front post treble crochet, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch to know where the middle section starts and ends. Then to get started on our cable stitch detail, we're all going to yarn over 3 times, preparing for a front post double treble crochet. Then taking a look at our previous odd number row, so our row 1, we're going to skip 1, skip 2 stitches. Into the following, we're going to insert with a front post double treble crochet. So all that's going to be is a yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And then another front post double treble crochet into that following stitch. So yarn over 3 times. Insert your hook underneath, through the other side, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, 2, and 2. And then from here, 1 front post double treble crochet into the 2 stitches that we skipped. So yarn over 3 times. Finding that first skip stitch, we're going to bring our hook down underneath that stitch and through the other side, pull through, and yarn over, pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And then another front post double treble into that next skip stitch. So yarn over 3 times, underneath, through the other side, pull through 2, 2, 2, 2. Then to finish up this cable stitch detail, 1 front post treble crochet into the following 2 stitches. So yarn over twice, into that following stitch from our row 1, bring your hook underneath, through the other side, pull through 2, 2, 2. Another front post treble underneath the following, so yarn over twice, and pull through, and then pull through 2, 2, 2. And then another front post treble crochet into the following stitch, and that is going to count as our dividing stitch, kind of like how we started off this cable stitch detail with a front post treble. So yarn over twice. Underneath that following stitch, pull through 2, 2, and 2. And now our middle cable stitch detail is complete. Now from here, all we're going to do is basically mirror everything that we did here on this side. So our following section is going to be an alpine stitch detail, twist, alpine, twist, until we reach the end of the row. So I'm going to get started on the following 2 sections with you and let you do the rest on your own. So right after that last front post treble crochet for our middle cable stitch detail, into that following stitch, which it should be our stitch marker stitch, we're going to insert with a single crochet. So into that stitch, insert with a single, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch. Yarn over and skipping 1 stitch from our previous odd number row, insert with 1 front post double crochet. From here, continue with a single crochet, then front post double crochet until we are worked into the stitch right before our stitch marker. So our alpine stitch detail is complete. Now we're going to do our twist, which is going to be done exactly the same way as the other side. So start with a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice, skipping 1 stitch from our row 1 because that single crochet counts as that stitch. Bring your hook underneath with a front post treble crochet. And then insert a stitch marker into the top of that stitch. Then to do our twist, yarn over twice. Skip 1 stitch and into the following with 1 front post treble crochet. Into the following stitch, another front post treble crochet. And then a front post treble into that 1 skip stitch. Then finish off this twist detail with another twist and a front post treble crochet. Then from here, just continue to alternate between an alpine stitch section and a twist section. All of them are going to be done exactly the same way that we have been doing them this entire time until we reach the end of the row. And just as a quick note, the last section is going to be an alpine stitch section. Alrighty, so we are back. We are all complete with our row 3. Now every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So from where we're at, chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch, making way all the way back down, and making sure to bring your stitch markers with you into the same stitches. Then I'll meet you guys back to get started on our row 5. Alright, everyone's row 4 is complete. Now let's get started on our row 5, so chain 2 and flip. So we're all going to get started with our alpine stitch detail. Now when it comes to doing our alpine stitch detail, each of our stitches need to be staggered from our previous row to get the texture that we want. And also each of our odd number rows is always going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So just like how our row 3 was worked into our row 1, our row 5 that we're working on is going to be worked into our row 3. So taking a look at our previous odd number row, so our row 3, we're going to find that first stitch, and it should be a single crochet for everyone. Now since that's a single crochet, and we need our alpine stitches to be staggered from our previous row, we're going to insert into there with a front post double crochet. So yarn over. And insert your hook underneath the body of that single crochet from our previous odd number row, bring it through the other side, then yarn over and pull through. When we have those 3 loops, we're still going to pull up tall, pull through 2, and that is the first stitch for our row 5. Then we're going to single crochet. So skipping 1 stitch from our previous row, because this front post double crochet counts as that first stitch, we're going to insert into the next with a single crochet. So pretty much the same idea as our previous alpine stitch detail. Let's do another set of stitches together. Yarn over, preparing for a front post double crochet. Taking a look at our previous odd number row, we're going to be inserting our hook underneath the body of that single crochet and through the other side. We're going to pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, and then our next stitch is a single crochet. So skipping 1 stitch from our previous row, because this front post double counts as that stitch, single crochet into there. And we're going to continue on with our alpine stitch detail until we are worked into the stitch right before our stitch marker stitch. So our alpine stitch detail is complete. Now we're all going to do our twist together, and the twist is actually going to be exactly the same always for every row. So let's get that started. Our twists are always going to start with a front post treble crochet, so yarn over twice. Inserting your hook into that front post treble crochet from our previous odd number row. There's our first stitch, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of this stitch. Then, just like before, we're going to skip 1 stitch, and then into the next 1 front post treble crochet into there. Then a front post treble crochet into the next stitch. Then, to do our twist, we're going to put 1 front post treble crochet into the 1 stitch that we skipped. And then repeat, so yarn over twice. Skipping 1 stitch from our previous row, and inserting into the next with a front post treble crochet, a front post treble crochet into the following stitch, a front post treble crochet into the stitch that we skipped, and then a front post treble crochet to frame out our twists. And now that we have our twists all finished up, we're going to get started on our alpine stitch detail again. We're going to yarn over. Inserting your hook into the single crochet from our previous alpine stitch detail, because remember our alpine stitches need to be staggered. Then we're going to skip 10 stitches from our previous row, and we're skipping 10 because of the front post double crochet from our previous alpine stitch detail, plus the 8 that we just did for a twist, and then for this front post double crochet that we just did as well, and then single crochet into the next. Let's do this again. Yarn over, into the single crochet from our previous alpine stitch row, pull up tall, then skip a stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and single crochet. And from here, we're just going to continue to repeat our alpine stitch and our twist detail until we're ready to get started on our middle cable stitch detail. Alrighty, so we are back. We have just finished up doing all of our alpine stitch and twist details. all the way down until we have reached our middle stitch marker stitch and now are ready to do our middle cable detail. So what we're all going to do is start with a front post treble crochet because our cables are pretty much always framed with front post treble crochets. So all we're going to do is yarn over twice, finding that first stitch from our previous cable stitch row, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now getting started on our row 5's middle cable, it's going to be 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches. So right after our framing stitch, into that following another front post treble, so pull through 2, 2, 2, and then into that following stitch another front post treble, so pull through 2, 2, 2. Then from here we're going to skip the following 2 stitches and then put 1 front post double treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches. So we're all going to yarn over 3 times. There's 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip 1, skip 2, into the following, insert with 1 front post double treble crochet, and then into the next with another front post double treble crochet. Now that we have those 2 stitches completed, we're now going to work into the 2 stitches that we skipped, but now working in through that window that we just made for ourselves. So what we're going to do is yarn over 3 times. We are going to need to hang on to our working yarn because it can very easily fall off, and all we're going to do is pull our work down towards us, finding those 2 skip stitches. So we're going to pull down, and in through that little gap that we have, we're going to find our skip stitches. Here's my first and here's my second. Into that first stitch, insert with 1 front post double treble crochet. So yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is what our first stitch should be looking like. And we have 1 more left to do. So yarn over 3 times again, hang on to our working yarn, and pull downwards. Finding that last skip stitch, insert with a front post double treble crochet. And now our cable stitch detail is complete. We're just going to close off our cable stitch detail with a front post treble crochet, so yarn over twice, into that next stitch with 1 front post double treble crochet. And that is our middle detail. Now what we're going to do from here is the same alpine stitch detail and twist that we did over here on the other side, so we're just going to get started on the following section together. Now keeping in mind that our alpine stitches do need to be staggered from our previous alpine stitch row, you're going to find that first stitch, which is a single crochet for everyone, yarn over and insert your hook underneath the body of that single crochet with a front post double. Then from here we're going to single crochet. So we are going to be skipping 10 stitches now from our previous row, and we're skipping 10 for our middle cable stitch detail because we're going to count from our first front post double crochet from our previous alpine stitch detail, plus the 8 stitches that we just did for our cables, plus the additional front post double crochet that we did for this alpine stitch detail, and then single crochet into the next. So taking a look at our previous row, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Into the next, insert with a single crochet. And that's it. Continue with 1 front post double crochet, then 1 single crochet, then once we reach our stitch marker, we're going to do our twists, and we're just going to continue to repeat these sections. Now everyone's last stitch for this row is going to be a front post double crochet. Do not do that last front post double crochet. I will meet you guys back to show you how we're going to be ending this row. Alright, so we are back. We have made our way all the way down with our row 5, and we did leave our last stitch. Now for every repeat of row 5, the last stitch in the row is going to be a front post double crochet, but it will be combined with a single crochet to make sure that everything is secured down along the edge. So how that's going to work is we're going to yarn over. We're going to insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous odd number row, yarn over, and pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to pull up tall still, yarn over, pull through 2, and when we have those 2 loops on our hook, we're going to insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row, but we want to make sure that we're inserting it in through the back so that it's still a front post double crochet. So just find that stitch, insert your hook. There we go, yarn over and pull through. We should have 3 loops on our hook. So yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And now our row 5 is complete. Now, like I said in one of our previous clips, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip your work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch, making sure that we're bringing our stitch markers with us. And then I'll meet you guys back. We are back, and our rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are complete. Now it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6. So I'm just going to get the following row started off, and then I'll meet you guys back just to get started on the cable stitch detail as a refresher, and then I'll let you get started with the rest on your own. Now we're about to get started on a repeat of row 3, and that's going to start with a single crochet into the first stitch. And our last odd number row starts with a double crochet, and like I said, our stitches need to be staggered. So into that first stitch, insert with a single crochet, then finding the single crochet from our previous odd number row, insert with a front post double crochet. Then we're just going to continue with our alpine stitch detail until we reach our stitch marker. Then we're going to do our twist, which is pretty much going to be the same for every single row, and then I'll meet you guys back when we're about to get started on our middle cable stitch detail. We've made our way all the way down with our row 7, which was a repeat of our row 3, and we're now at our middle cable stitch detail. So we're just going to get this started together. So our cable stitch details are always going to start with a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice and inserting our hook into our previous odd number row. We're going to insert, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and insert your stitch marker into the top of the stitch. Then just to get this started, we're going to yarn over 3 times, skip the following 2 stitches, and then into the stitch right after that with 1 front post treble crochet, another front post treble crochet into the stitch right after that one, then 1 front post double treble crochet into the 2 stitches that we skipped, then into the last 2 stitches into the cable stitch detail, 1 front post treble crochet, and then close off this cable with a front post treble crochet. Then from here we're just going to continue on with a repeat of row 3 per usual. Then single crochet back, get started on our repeat of row 5, and if you need timestamps for any of these rows, they will all be linked in the description. But just continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we get the length of the top that we need. So placing this first row where you'd like for the bottom of this sweater to be until this reaches the base of our neck. And I will meet you back right after we finish up a repeat of row 3. Alrighty, so I am back. The length of my sweater is completed. Now we're going to do the shoulders. But just to let you guys know, I have a total of 39 rows and my length is roughly 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to do the shoulder portion. So since we all should have ended right after a repeat of row 3, so our following row is going to be a single crochet row. From here, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch until we are worked into the stitch that we have that's right before the alpine stitch detail that's nearest to our middle cable, and we will be worked into that stitch marker stitch. So our single crochet row is complete. Now from here we're just going to do our twists, alpine stitch detail, and continue on with that until we reach the end of the row. So this portion is basically going to be the same way that we have been doing this section. Now just as a really quick tip, the last stitch for this row is going to end on our front post double crochet. We are still going to be combining it with a single crochet to make sure that everything is secured down. And from here, we're just going to continue to repeat our row 3 through 6's alpine stitch detail until we get the height of the shoulder portion that we want. So making sure that we're placing our middle cable stitch detail at the base of our neck, and just continue on with this until we reach the top of our shoulder, making sure that we end right after a cable stitch row, and then I will meet you guys back. Alrighty, so we are back and my shoulder portion is complete. So I did an additional 12 shoulder rows, so I now have a total of 51 rows, and my height is now 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters. So now we're just going to put 1 single crochet into every side row. So let's do the first few together. We are going to chain 1 from where we're at. Then finding our first side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to insert into that top loop with 1 single crochet. Now into my following top loop, which should be a single crochet, insert with 1 single. Let's do this again. This alpine stitch row is my following row. Find that top loop and insert with a single. And then this single crochet row is my following row, so I'm going to insert into there with a single as well. We're going to continue putting 1 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way down As a really quick tip, we should have the same amount of single crochets as total rows that we made. We make our way all the way down to the bottom, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alrighty, so we are back. My single crochet row along the edge of my piece is complete, and now we're basically going to do the same thing on the other side. We're all going to start by inserting our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our stitch marker stitch that is one section away from our middle cable detail. Once when our hook is in through there, we're going to single crochet, working our way towards the outside. Now we're actually going to have our piece with the back portion faced up towards us. I just have it this way so that it's easier for everyone to see. So like I said, do our single crochet row, and then we're going to do our alpine and cable stitch detail, and I will meet you guys back when we all have just one front post treble crochet left to do. Alright, so we are back. I have finished up my first single crochet row for the shoulder, and then did our repeat of row 5, making our way all the way down, and we should all have just one front post treble crochet left to do, which should be our dividing stitch. Now this is going to be a regular front post treble, but it is going to be combined with a single crochet just to make sure that everything is secured down. So this is pretty much the same idea as the front post double crochet. So what we're going to do is yarn over twice. We're going to insert our hook into the front post single crochet from our previous odd number row and pull through. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So all together, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. When we have those 2 loops left on our hook, we're then going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of our previous row. So just into that last stitch, insert, yarn over, and pull through that first loop. Then we should have 3 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 3. And now this row is complete. Our following row is our single crochet row, then a repeat of our row 3, making our way all the way down, and the end of every cable stitch row will always end with a front post treble crochet combined with a single crochet. I'll meet you guys back once we have the rest of the shoulder portion completed. And then once we do a chain up of 1 and cut right after that last row, and then we'll do the single crochet row together. Alrighty, so the entirety of our second shoulder portion is complete. Now we're going to single crochet along the edge as well, but since we ended along the inside, we did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now all we're going to do is insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our piece because we want the front of the single crochet row to be faced outwards. And again, just like the other side, 1 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way up. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alrighty, so we have just finished up our single crochet row along the side of our front panel, and now the entirety of our front panel is complete. Now we're going to set this off to the side and get started on the back panel. So getting started on the back panel, we're going to make a slip knot, insert our same 6mm hook, and then we're all going to make a chain for the same amount of single crochets that we have along the side of our front panel. So for those of you that have my numbers, I have a total of 51 single crochets, so I will be making a chain of 51, but I actually already have the entirety of my back panel completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. We're going to insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, with a half double. And that's it. We're going to continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now that we have our row 1 complete, all we're going to do is chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, inserting our hook into that first stitch, in through that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, we're going to insert, pull through 3, and again, yarn over into that following stitch's back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, pull through 3. And that's basically it. Continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch again. Now all we're going to do from here is just continue on with our back loop half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases until we get the total width of our front panel. So as you guys can see, our back panel is going to be fairly long, so go ahead and sit back and relax, put on your favorite TV show, and just continue to do back loop half double crochet rows. Now some really quick tips that I have for you guys is once when you're measuring this up to your front panel, we want to make sure that it's not scrunched up. We want it to be roughly the same size as the front panel. So just make sure that you're laying it completely flat, because we definitely don't want it too short nor too long. If you want anything, then too short is better, because if it's too long, the back would be a little bit droopy. But as you guys can see, my back panel is completed. I have a total of 70 rows. My length is roughly 25 inches or 63 centimeters. And once we have the entirety of our back panel completed, we're just going to single crochet across the top to make it easier for us to seam. So getting started on the single crochet row across the top of our back panel, we're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So right after our last row, we're going to chain 1. Then we're all going to start by finding our first side row. This is mine right here, so I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Let's do this again. Into our following side row, I'm going to insert into there with 2 single crochets. So there is 1, and there's 2 all into that same top loop. Let's do a set of rows once more. This is my first side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 1 single. This is my following side row. I'm going to insert my hook into there with 2 singles. So there's 1, and there's 2. Continue doing this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So our single crochet row across the top of our back panel is complete. Now we're going to seam the shoulders. So since we want the seams to be along the inside, for the back panel we're going to make sure that we're looking at the front of our single crochet row, and then we're going to place the front panel on top of the back panel, making sure that the cable stitch detail is face down and away from us. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now all we're going to do is single crochet, making sure that we're working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So finding the first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook. Finding the first stitch into the back panel, insert your hook into there as well, and then single crochet around everything. That's basically it. Let's do this again. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches into the front panel left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. Alrighty, so now that our front panel is seamed to the back, we're now going to get started on our collar. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, meaning the cable stitch detail is faced up towards us. Then from here, we're going to insert our hook into any one of the stitches that we have along our neckline, and we're just going to do a single crochet row. So this is going to be fairly easy, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. So I inserted mine into the stitch that's nearest to my shoulder seam. All we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row for the shoulders. Now since I did a total of 12 rows for my shoulders, I should have 12 single crochets. Then working across the front panel, 1 single crochet into every stitch. Working our way up our shoulder again, still 1 single crochet into every side row, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch working across our neckline. Slip stitch into that chain space once we made our way all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so our single crochet row along our neckline is complete. Now we're going to get started on the actual collar portion. So right after we have slip stitched into that chain space, we're now all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our collar to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert your hook, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. Again, into that next chain, insert, and pull through everything. Now from here, continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, remembering not to tug too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row can be a little too tight to work into. Now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we now need to connect it into the base. So simply finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to slip stitch into there, and that slip stitch does not count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base as well. That slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch either, and flip our work. Now finding the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to do back loop slip stitches. We're going to do a back loop slip stitch. So working into the last stitch, not into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us, then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, insert and pull through everything. And that's it. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, still remembering not to tug too tightly. Then at the end of the row, chain 1, Flip your work and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the base just once more. So we are back and we have 1, 2, 3 rows nearly finished. Now we just need to connect it into the base. So just like how we did for our previous rows, we're going to find that next available stitch into the base, slip stitch it into there. That still doesn't count as a stitch. And then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and then do more back loop slip stitches. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, making our way all the way around with no increases and no decreases. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you guys back so we can seam it all up together. Alrighty, so we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows, and now that we don't have any more stitches left to work into, we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam. So for this seam, we're going to make sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up, because this seam is going to look like another back loop slip stitch row. Then, finding that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert only in through that front loop. Then, finding that first stitch into the back panel, we're going to insert our hook only in through that back loop. And when we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. Let's do this again. First stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop. First stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, then do a chain up of 1 and cut. So now that our collar is completely seamed up, we're ready to get started on our sleeve. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out now, because we want this single crochet seam to be along the inside, just like our shoulder seam. And then we're going to insert our stitch marker into any stitch that is in multiples of 3 from the top, the width that we like for our sleeve to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 6.5 inches or 17 centimeters, so I inserted my stitch marker into the 33rd stitch from the top. Then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch, both the front and the back panel. Then insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're going to do a single crochet seam. So into that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, and if you guys are like me, you have some tail ends, go ahead and just place that over your hook and single crochet around everything, and now you don't need to weave in your tail ends later. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, next stitch into the back panel, and single crochet, and continue doing this until we reach our stitch marker stitch. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So now that our sides are all seamed up, we're ready to get started on the length of our sleeve. So what we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out now, meaning all of our seams are along the inside, and then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our side seam. Then we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our sleeve to be. And I would like for my sleeve to be roughly 15 inches or 36 centimeters, so I made a chain 60. But once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into that 3rd chain, or the chain that we blocked off, with a half double crochet. And from here, put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Alright, so we've made our way all the way up with our row 1. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to do that is we're all going to start by counting up the next 2 available stitches into the base. So here's 1, here's 2. Slip stitch into that 2nd stitch into the base, and remember that that slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch. Then we need to work our way up to the following row. So just slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. So to do this together, yarn over, making sure that we're not working into those slip stitches into the base, find that last stitch from our previous row and insert into that back loop, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Now when we reach the end of the row, chain 2, flip your work and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the base once more. Alright, so we are back. We should have a total of 1, 2, 3 rows nearly finished, and now we're just going to slip stitch it into the base together. It's going to be done exactly the same way as our previous rows. So as a refresher, we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches, slip stitch into that second stitch into the base to close off this odd number row. Then to work our way to our next even number row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch. Flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and that's it. We're just going to continue to do this, making our way all the way up and around our sleeve, and when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you guys back so we can seam everything together. Alrighty, so we are back. I have made my way all the way around with my sleeve. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam up our sleeve. This is going to be a single crochet sleeve, so the same as the sides and the shoulder. So we're going to start by flipping our work wrong side out so all of our seams can be along the same side. Then, since we already know how to do this, we're just going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And just to do the first one, find that first stitch into the front panel, first stitch into the back panel, and single crochet. And that's it. Continue on with our seam until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so now that our sleeve is all seamed up, we're ready to get started on our cuff. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out now, meaning all of our seams are along the inside, we're going to insert our hook into any one of our side seams. Next, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row. So we should end up with the same amount of single crochets as rows that we have for our sleeve. So doing the first one together, this is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop, insert with a single. This is my following side row, insert with another single. And just make your way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. Alright, so our single crochet row along the edge of our sleeve is completed. Now we're going to make a chain for the cuff. Now the cuff is going to be done exactly the same as the collar. So we're all going to start by making a chain the length of the cuff that we would like. Mine just so happens to be 2 inches or 5 centimeters, or I'm going to make a chain 10 like my collar, but you can make your cuff longer or shorter. And since it's going to be done exactly the same way as our collar, let's just get this row started. We're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Slip stitch into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook with a slip stitch, remembering not to tug too tightly. From here, we're going to continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. Once we reach the base, connect it into the base the same way that we did for the collar. Then just continue on with back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around, and when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. So we have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it all together. And this seam is actually going to be the same exact seam as our collar, so an outside loop slip stitch seam. We're all going to start by making sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up, then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything, and we're just going to do the first one together. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert only in through that front loop, and then into the next stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop, then yarn over and gently pull through everything on our hook. And continue this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Do a chain up of 1 and cut when we don't. Then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so we are back. Both of our sleeves are complete, and the last thing we're going to do is our bottom band. So let's all make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to start with a single crochet row. So start by inserting our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom of our piece, and then working into the back panel, we're going to have a bunch of side rows. So just like how we single crocheted into the top of the back panel when we seamed everything together, we're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Once we reach the front panel, we should have some regular stitches to work into, so just put 1 single crochet into each of those. Make your way all the way around, and then I'll meet you back. Alright, so our single crochet row is complete. Now we're going to do a double crochet bottom band. So right after we slip stitched into that chain space, we're now all going to make a chain the length that we like for our bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, so I made a chain 8. Now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 3. Now that chain 3 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to double crochet into every chain. So yarn over and into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook, insert with a double crochet, just like that, and continue with 1 double crochet into every chain. Alright, so we put 1 double crochet into every chain. Now we're going to connect this row into the base. So how we're going to connect our double crochet band is counting up the next 2 available stitches and slip stitch into that second stitch into the base. Then in order to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into the following 2 stitches into the base. So there's 1, and then there is 2, remembering that none of these slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and flip our work, and now 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over into that last stitch from our previous row, making sure we're not working into any of those slip stitches, 1 back loop double crochet, and continue with 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 3, flip your work, and then put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the base just once more. We are back, and we should all have 1, 2, 3 rows nearly finished. Now we're going to connect our row 3. So just like how we connected our row 1, we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches. So there's 1, there's 2, slip stitch into that stitch, and then we need to work our way up to the following row. So slip stitch up the following 2 stitches. There's 1, there's 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around, and then I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. Alright, so we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop double crochet rows for the bottom band, and now we're going to seam it up together. So this is going to be a single crochet seam, so the same seam that we did for the sides, and since we already know how to do this, I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We are going to want to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out so that all of these single crochet seams can be along the inside. Then just do our single crochet seam. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now that everything is all seamed up, we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.